Pinda, she's an M1 student. Pinda, these are your reviewers. There's Likabile, Jabu, and Anita and FJ. So you've got 8 minutes to present. Now you may take it away.
Okay, I want to quickly, guys, because I don't have time. Veronica, time. Can everyone, maybe you can start from your side, Veronica. Please take a look at the mirror, and at the end of my presentation, I'll ask you a question. So take a look in the mirror and tell me what you see. Or tell me in the end. So please come this way, and then you may take a seat. Thank you. Please hold your thoughts. Remember them because they are important. Now I will play a song for you very quickly. So I'll play a song for you again. No rest, guys. No rest. Oh.
The land debate continues to rage on. The Khoisan community is insisting it should be prioritized when government starts expropriating land.
When you haven't got land and you haven't got the culture, you can't be counted. You're nothing like.
That's blackface. Can't help.
Upon us, the
It's upon us, the youth, to find out who we
Land
really
debate.
want to be. Okay, may you please stand? And I would like you guys to be on this side of the table, and I will begin on this side. Sorry, everyone. Good afternoon. The city of Cape Town had its origin in 1652 when the Dutch East India Company established a refreshment station for its ships on the shores of Table Creek. The location was magnificent, on well-watered, fertile soil beneath the precipitous walls of Table Mountain. But this is our first case in point where the Dutch used erasure, as they failed to mention those that had occupied the space when they arrived. The Dutch claimed that they arrived first and discovered Cape Town, when in fact, more than a century prior to that, Portuguese there had been a war between the Khoi and Bartholomew Diaz. My name is Pindam Dingi. The title of my project is called The Ministry of the Hora Twako, an almonic of translating erasure of indigenous Khoi bodies in VOC Cape Town. The foundation of the project is based on historical findings. Now, Milolo states that the writing of history and geography of the discovered territories meant that the erasure of the local histories and geographies, and furthermore, of local notions of memory, land, and language. Coloniality uproots the non-Western, categorizes them as the other, the backward, the savage, and the primitive, revealing translation as an act of erasure. This means that for Cape Town to have been recorded as a discovered territory, the history of the native people who lived there had to be erased. Their land, language, and memory destroyed for the Dutch's conquest to be realized. A deliberate restitution. Now, the Dutch colonization of the Khoi people in Camisa during the 17th century was a complex process that involved a series of steps leading to the displacement and eventual erasure of the Hora Twakwa culture in the region. Let me take you through this timeline. We start with the arrival of the Dutch East India Company, the expansion of Dutch settlement, conflict and resistance, domination and subjugation, cultural erosion, legal and social marginalization. Now, the erasure is enforced in the rapid development of Camisa into Sea Point from 1770 to 1930. The area began to develop as a residential suburb for European settlers in the early 1800s, and in 1839 joined into one municipality neighboring Greenpoint. But by 1950, it remained a white-only suburb under the Group Areas Act of the National Party in the Party suburb. So the mostly pink part became white and black. The narrative of the project is centered around Kitsiso, the son of Ngubi, whom before he may marry his beloved, has to reclaim his identity by making a ceremony for his father. The proposition typology is a carnival based on the etymological definition of carnival. Kan, karo, meaning flesh, and lavare, put away, thus meaning to put flesh away. The proposition, and we may move the side and then we may sit once you feel that clear view. We're now here in carnival. The proposition is taking us back into a moment in history which after time has been erased. Kitso's past has been erased and the project calls for a restitution in his life's timeline. The Ministry of the Hora Twakwa Carnival is an annual month-long carnival held in Sea Point, Cape Town. This is Sea Point, Cape Town. This is also Sea Point, Cape Town. This is the beach side and this is the mountain area. So in between. Following a memorial ceremony that took place in Marais and Beach Road in Sea Point, we were welcomed by the elders at Ikaya Lentutuzelo and Ngubi who was brought home. We then were guided along Umnelelo. Sorry. We're now moving to Ikaya Lentutuzelo. And then we were guided along Umnelelo with praises and worship, sounding majestic on a scenic platform. Eskumbuzweni, right in the middle. As the ceremony unfolded, Ngubi's bones were wrapped in Lesbok skin loincloth and placed in a 1.8 meter deep hole on a bed of koihoot. As the sister led the bones on a sudden fierce dust devil sweeps across the promenade, upturning gazebos and scattering plastic water bottles put out for the mourners. His spirit is rejoicing, says Munisa looking upward. He is back home. Ngubi came into Sea Point as a specimen. But when he left on that day, he left as a man. Home with the soil and stone, love and respect, your human dignity restored. You are people, our people, whose sun-colored skins shone during the day and twinkled like stars at night. Eyes full, whose blood flows through white, black, and brown people. an excerpt from Hayes Facts by Sutherland Poet Beauty. Now, the meaning of this project is to include Kitsiso's history that has been erased, a history that has not been recorded, and to make space for it to happen. This project wishes to highlight that Cape Town is not dealing with heritage in the right way, and to challenge the way the legislation decides on whose histories are important to keep. In dealing with historical histories, historical records, we need to question whose perspective is held and whose voice has been silent. We must shake off the heavy darkness in which we were plunged and leave it behind. It has been a pleasure to present my project to you.
Thanks, Pinda. You have 2 more minutes. Maybe take them through your process and where you started in the year.
Oh, okay. So at the beginning of the year, we started with the film. First thing we did, we had to create a film, and we were partnered up. And with my partner, so many things came to mind. We created this character, and in creating the character, the situations around the character, the architecture that becomes from the character was from the character. And so we wanted to twist what we could say. So we presented the character as a modest sewing woman wearing a dress, sewing, waiting for her husband to come back home. But as the film goes on, we later find that there's certain weird things about this woman. The husband eventually comes back home, but if you watch the film, it's the same person portraying the husband and the wife. And so later in the film, I then portrayed a live performance wearing this jacket, which I ripped off from this shirt and reconstructed it into a Salem jacket to portray that this is a person in mental health. So the person telling the story can create worlds, and it can be true to your mind, and you create and you follow along the architecture from the stories, but it may not be so if you watch and take in the full story and you listen to what has not been said. Then on this table, I was thinking maybe you can come this way and you can quickly push it that side if it's a problem. If the last thing you guys do for me, last thing. The way in which I have been taking and doing my assignments is to write and sketch, write and sketch. With this paper, I've been trying to neatinize it, but some papers, as you can see, keep coming back. And this is like a collection of like all the research and things I've found in Cape Town. So that we went to Cape Town, certain souvenirs from Cape Town, certain points that stuck out to me in Cape Town, in auction exhibition that sadly you've missed. And then some sketches. I've also dabbled a bit in sewing, but came to find I have no patience. And then watching the movement of people in the auction, and these were actually archived material from my presentation on Sea Point in Cape Town and Erasure. And and then this, I know you cannot read it, but this is the Hottentot Proclamation. So it's very interesting to find pieces of legislation that's surrounding hate still available and out there.
Sorry, which of these are your drawings? Are these your drawings?
Yes, and so
did you draw this one?
yes, I drew over the ones that I found because they were not clear. I couldn't make sense of it, so I drew and then I rescanned it. Actually, this is like a third version. And then this is just like slips when you go to the library. What's interesting is you get a piece of paper like this. So I found it to be an interesting record to keep all the things that you've been looking through. And then I used to use this old diary to also make notes, because I write everywhere when I use my diary, my dedicated journal. And I'm also coming to accept that I don't write in one piece of thing. And so, yeah, that's my piece.
Thanks, Pinda. And back to the mirror.
Yes, back to the mirror. Do you allow me? Will you allow me?
Yeah, 2
Thank
seconds.
you. Thank you. Let's start. I started with you. What did you say?
Myself.
All right. Okay, that's a good one. I'm not looking for. Please don't try to. Jabu, please tell me.
A reflection.
A reflection. All right. Can you please tell me what you saw in the mirror?
Just my appearance.
Just your appearance. Can you please tell me what you saw in the mirror?
Me.
You. So you.
I was checking if my hair looks okay.
So reason why sorry,
No, it's
I
fine.
didn't take the mirror.
Yeah.
Sorry. Reason why I made you go through this exercise is because people like Itiso do not see themselves in mirrors. They do not have an identity, and when land has been taken from you, and your people and reburials have not been made for you, you cannot. It's not just a matter of remarrying or as such. It's finding who you are and who you're meant to be. And so, if you are able to see yourself, it means that you are in a good space, and I'm happy for you.
Thank you, Pinda. Jabu,
Me?
yes, you first.
How am I first?
Thank you, Jabu.
Hello, Pinda.
Hi, sir.
Do you know what? This is your methodology. This is how you work. And it is not, as you said, you're trying to, what did you describe this? Neatinize it. But maybe that's not the point. You know, maybe the point is not to neatinize it. Maybe the point is to present the case as raw, as rough, as unfinished as many of the stories that we hear about any of us. Whether it's Cape Town, it's Johannesburg, it is Emadadeni, or it is a story that is personal to you and your own experiences, that it is not always well curated and put together to be consumed by the other. I think you're worried a lot in this presentation today about how you present this work or how we consume it. Versus telling us. To me, I got excited when you just told us, when I went to Cape Town, this is what I saw. This is when I went into this building, this stood out for me. Because you are telling us about your own experience, and now I get to understand the project from your point of view. It is, to me, a project that is trying to make sense of a number of different things. They may not be clear, and I think the story of Cape Town is very complex. It is a very unsettling story, because it is a story about land, but it's also a story about race, it's a story about ethnicity, it is a story about landscape, it is a story about identity, and it is a story that is still in current times not resolved. Cape Town still wants, or Western Cape wants to be its own country. Imagine. Separate from South Africa. Because of the complexities of that space. It is a complex, and I would even dare say, cluttered story. It's a mess. And I think the project, the way it is, presents that mess. It's a messy story. And I think don't fight and try and make it palatable to us. Cape Town is a messy part of South Africa. A very complex, a very problematic, but also very joyful, a very happy, a very idealistic, a very utopian part of South Africa. It's a mess. And I think your project tries to do that. I don't know if I believe in the actual design proposition, but it's neither here nor there for me. I think what you presented is the messiness of Cape Town and the narrative that Cape Town embodies. And I think you've done that very well in the various experiments and explorations that we've done. Yeah.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you. FJ?
Thanks for the presentation. I'm just going to ask you one question. How do you feel about your project? Just a quick answer. How do you feel about what you presented?
Too connected sometimes, like.
Too connected?
Yeah, I would say.
Or how do you feel about the quality of work?
Or the quality of work. Forward come, I'm proud of. I'm proud of where it is.
Where it is?
I feel that I can push further in terms of like when now I've arrived in the proposition, and in terms of like my skills and how I work.
Yeah. So you see, reason why I asked you to answer that question is because there has to be some sort of self-reflection that happens when you're presenting work, and that gives you some sort of confidence. If you know your work is good, you have confidence in that. If you know your work needs improvement, you sort of reflect on that and see what needs to be improved. that's just, and I think in terms of the quality of drawing, for this level of study, you can definitely do it. And this is not me saying you have to draw in a certain way. It's just me saying, if messiness is your technique, own it. Let it be that confidence that, you know, when someone comes in, they can seek intentionality in the messiness. Does that make sense? Yeah. As opposed to, I can see, but I'm not too sure if she knows what she's doing, or she knows. So I've seen people decide and say, you know what, audio or mapping or whatever, or acting is my form of communicating my design, and they own it. So you sort of like have to own that, what you're doing. Does that make sense? And that has to speak in terms of, because if you look at the journal, for instance, and I'm not comparing, but if you look at some other journals that we see, you can see intentionality. And you can bring all of that messiness that you're talking about into that. You have to sort of like own that. That makes sense. And I like the idea of erasure that you're speaking about, and I think that's very powerful. I think that's where your topic lies, if I'm correct. And I think change is constant. And so if you're talking about erasure that has happened where, you know, the new government has come, there's some sort of erasure that's happened, I think you could have looked at a way to sort of erase what they have existing as a form of messiness. It's almost like saying, guys, I don't care what you're doing. I'm bringing my own form of erasure into what is existing. Because erasure will always happen. You know, in the next 100 years, Cape Town is not going to be what it is now. Some sort of erasure is going to happen. So your messiness can be that form of erasure that you propose. If that makes sense. I like your messiness. I like, you know, but I feel like you need to own it in terms of the quality of work that you present. If that makes sense. There has to be, and you can get references, you know, people that have done things like that, but there has to be that ownership of that body of work.
Yeah, thanks. I think your project stands in stark contrast in this portion here to your peers in that it's like super architectural. It's like followed a very architectural process of like starting in the wider area of Sea Point and then coming down to this space, and it's like architecture with a capital A. It's a building or a formalized space. And I think it's not the star of all the work you've done here. I think the questions that you're asking in the research portion are the interesting part, and when you try to make it like an answer, that's the result of this is here. And it's a little bit less interesting than the things that were happening today. So I think, yeah, there's something very rich in your process and in what the questions you are asking and what you looked at historically. And I'm almost, yeah, this kind of space in Sea Point, the pools, it becomes less clear, even though, you know, when you were searching for an answer, it was I'm not sure. So yes, I think that stuff is very rich. And I think I would ask myself, what is or does there need to be a answer? Or what is the form of the answer? You don't have to.
Yeah, so I also think that's incredibly rich, and then the translation to the architecture. Let's see. I thought your film was very powerful, and what I also found very powerful over there was the drawings that you made over there and over there. You said that you had taken those existing historical archive drawings, is that correct? And that you drawn over them. So I think that's very interesting. When you drew over them, did you add anything to them?
Yes.
So you took that original drawing and you also added something to it.
Yes, because
when they mapped Cape Town, there was no Khoi people,
Aha.
nobody. So
Yes,
I put the
there
Khoi
we go.
people.
There we go. You see that? So they didn't map the Khoi people, and you've kind of looked at that archive and you've added that erased or that the history that's not there, and you've brought that in through your voice. Okay, that's very powerful in those drawings. And if that can start translating into what you're doing here, I think that is your, that is gonna like strengthen your project. Because at the moment what I picked up is that it's a carnival space, and it's based on someone who's marrying someone else, and that carnival is based on the kind of steps they take to kind of get to the marriage. So what happens here when there isn't a carnival? Because a carnival could happen maybe a day, maybe a week. Then what? So look at the way that you've brought in a historical archive and you've drawn into that with your knowledge, your storytelling that was not included. So could this become something of an archive when it's not a carnival?
So this is like when it's a carnival, and then the first show after there's no carnival. That it's the head office for the industry of the Khoi community, and what it is just you could say remembrance, but people can come into the space. The walls remain. So the floorboards, the decking all come out. The police are back and it's a beach, but these walls
Okay, I think it's maybe just not communicated, and if you took that and kind of almost put it into the way that you're presenting your architecture, I think just make it tie the two together. And I think I also enjoyed your sort of changing of your clothing. I don't know if you could take that further. You change your hat, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, so maybe you could start that right from the beginning and start sort of under your jacket. I don't know, maybe
Actually, on Sunday when I rehearsed, it was that. And then because I have my speech and
it's too much.
I was too excited about it. I'm like, I'm gonna tell my friend, let's trip on that. Yes, but I understand exactly what you mean because it's talking identity and
yes. But also if that can come here, I think,
sorry, can I?
Yeah, you can.
I think for me it's always been how then, like how like
If only we knew the answer.
like because right and then but it has to be architecture.
I know.
Yeah, I get you.
I have to come at you guys.
Yes.
That I also trying to show people I'm an architect in training, but I am very much so also at the point where I'm frustrated at it, like it not feeling the way I want it to feel, if that makes sense. So
you see, all of what you're saying is what makes it a whole project. No one is here to make a final product. If your process of even frustration and everything can be captured in the totality of what you're doing, it gives essence to. There's no final product in this project. That's why it's called research. There's a constant unpacking that has to happen. Does that make sense? So I think you're too weighed down by the final product, and then you just feel some sort of frustration between the initial idea and now having to get something finalized, as opposed to just embracing the journey and just even if documenting the journey and saying, guys, this is where the final product looks like in terms of my journey. It doesn't have to have everything, and if you can just be genuine about that process and be deliberate about you know, the details of your curation of what you're doing. It's like you're creating the whole experience. That becomes your full-on project. That makes sense. And you already have the research there. It's just about, I think it's just the packaging of everything that makes it a full-on project.
My supervisor, PhD, says something so profound. Says the act of not building is an architectural decision. Architectural decision does not mean it has to be a building. Sometimes not building, because you've done all this research and it leads you to go, we don't need a building. That whole process and that whole act itself is an architectural decision.
That's a good place to end it.
You're amazing, Pinda. You did so well. I hope you hear this. Send me a WhatsApp if you hear my congrats.